What is up, you guys? It's your friend Upshall, and today I'm bringing you folks some more Overwatch. We're going to be doing a rundown on MEI. How she's kind of one of my favorite characters. I'm going to give you guys an overview on how to use her, just a quick breakdown on how to use her abilities best, and then we're going to kind of take it in detail on how to kind of maximize MEI for competitive games, how you can counter other characters, lots of good stuff. So let's get into it. So, just to get started here, her primary fire ability is her endothermic blast. So what this is a blaster that unleashes a concentrated, short-range stream of frost that damages, slows, and ultimately freezes enemies in place. You have 200 ammo for this little frost gun. It does about 20 rounds per second, and for each projectile, it's 2.25 damage, or what I think is kind of a better way to look at it, is 45 damage per second. But once you hit somebody for 80 damage, they are frozen. They are completely stunned, and the stun time lasts for 1.5 seconds. Not to mention, between when you start shooting them and they become frozen, they also become incredibly slowed. So while you're actually freezing the enemy with your primary fire with this endothermic blaster, all of your teammates are then going to have a much more vulnerable target to shoot at. So if you got, say, a Genji who's all over the place, very, very quick character, kind of hard to track down, could be a bit of a nuisance, and you start freezing him with MEI, all of a sudden that Roadhog who's been harassed by Genji all game can now hook him, shoot him, bing bang boom, Genji is goodbye. So the second thing that she has, and I'd really like to use this in coupling with the endothermic blaster, her primary blaster, is the icicle projectile. So that's her alternate fire shot. So what she does is you can use her blaster on PlayStation 4, which is what I play on. This is L2. This thing also has 200 damage, although 200 ammunition. The ammunition is kind of considered in partnership with the primary blaster. So you're using the primary blaster, and then every single time you shoot an icicle, you will use 25. So during her magazine, in total she has 8 icicles, but 200, I guess, little projectiles that she can use to freeze people. So the damage for the icicle projectile is 22 to 75. 75 is up close and personal. 22 is at range. There is a pretty large damage drop off, but that's 75 damage when you are point blank with a frozen enemy and you get that headshot. It gets tasty, ladies and gentlemen. So you can shoot this thing once every 0.52 seconds, but that means when you have somebody frozen for the 1.5 second time, you can hit them almost 3 times, and sometimes you can kind of get them as they come out of freeze with the icicle. This is an incredible ability to use. Probably some of the best close quarters primary fire to use in the game, aside from maybe, you know, McCree and Reaper, the guys who just completely dunk on scrubs close quarters. Now, her other ability is the Cryo Freeze, which is an ability, it has a cooldown, and what it does is MEI can instantly surround herself with a block of thick ice. She can heal and ignore damage while encased, but she cannot move or use her abilities. Now, this lasts for 4 seconds, and it heals MEI for 150 damage. So, her overall health is 250. So you're talking 150. Oftentimes I'll probably pop this between 50 to 100 health once I'm really getting kind of pushed. So that pretty much gives her a full heal if you use it at the right time. So that's kind of insane. And now it has a 12-second cooldown, but at the end of the day, that's kind of every single engagement might kind of take about 10 to 12 seconds. So between the time where you heal yourself and you engage the next enemies, there's a good chance that you'll actually have the Cryo Freeze ready to go again. Now, just some basic facts about the Cryo Freeze. There's nothing that can destroy her Cryo Freeze, as she's completely invulnerable while using it. There's absolutely no counter. Don't even try it. There's no point. Cryo Freeze also acts as a shield for allies behind it, as it will absorb any damage that hits it. I've had games before where Soldier 76 will pop his auto-aim, the aimbot, and I will pop the Cryo Freeze and jump at the same time in front of my teammates, and they'll actually stand behind it and kind of wiggle around Soldier 76 as he tries to light him up with that aimbot. It's actually quite a bit of an ability to use as a wall, besides the wall ability that I will talk about soon. Cryo Freeze also removes Zenyatta's Orb of Discord, that annoying ass purple thing that once you get it, you pretty much know shit's gonna hit the fan soon. So that's pretty much a good opt-out of just getting dunked on with the Orb of Discord. Cryo Freeze can be used to simply heal up any damage, but it can also be used as an alternative for seeking out health packs. Say you have one health pack there, you see your teammate is damaged, he's hurting. You say, okay, well I could take the health pack like a dick, or I could pop my Cryo Freeze and save that health pack, and now all of a sudden 2 of us have full health instead of 1. Now the cooldown for Cryo Freeze starts right when the current one is over, so this means that you could definitely cancel it if you do not need it, as canceling it will start the cooldown for the next one sooner. So, some people will actually, a good player will know that the Cryo Freeze typically lasts for 4 seconds, will kind of wait it out. But you can kind of catch them by surprise. Say you popped into Cryo Freeze with 175 health, so then it only took 2 seconds for you to heal to maximum health again. All of a sudden you're out 2 seconds before they expect it, and you can kind of get a little bit of a drop on the enemy. So, you can also use it to protect yourself from the enemy ultimate. So you see a Riptire coming, you can freeze yourself, see a Genji, see a Tracer actually stick you. That's right, if a Tracer sticks you with her ultimate ability, you can pop Cryo Freeze and make it out unscathed. Honestly, the Cryo Freeze has got to be the most incredible ultimate, or not ultimate, sorry, ability for just a get out of jail free card. It's crazy. And you'll see in this video some of the situations I get myself into and get out of with Cryo Freeze is just absurd. Like, it's head scratching. Now, her last big ability is her Ice Wall, and MEI can use this as an enormous ice wall that obstructs lines of sight, stops movement, and blocks attack. Its duration is 4.5 seconds, its cooldown is only 10 seconds, and the hit points per pillar are 500, so that can eat a lot of damage. You can get those blocking points up. Now, the Ice Wall consists of 5 pillars right next to each other, so in total, the Ice Wall could take 2,500 damage if you combine all those pillars. That's a hell of a lot of damage. You're going to need a Bastion put into turret mode, absolutely dumping rounds at the Ice Wall to get through it in any time at all. They can put down horizontally in front of you, or vertically in front of you by pressing the key that you pressed twice. So for the PlayStation 4 user, that is R1. If you press it to put the straight wall up in front of you, that horizontal wall, you can then press it again to turn it vertical. I also use this sometimes to get up onto a ledge just to get a bit of a vantage point, because if you point it at the ground and you go vertical, you can actually fly up into the air on top of the ice wall and then walk across it. Sometimes you can use that to get out of the area if you're getting pushed on. It kind of leaves people like, where the hell did she go? She just launched up this ice wall and now I can't see her in my visual sight. And you can kind of use it to get a little bit sneaky with MEI. If you put an ice wall directly on top of Tamoran's turret, I probably pronounced that horribly wrong, but it will actually simply disable it for the duration of the ice wall. But once the ice wall is over, the turret will be back shooting again. So if you want to just completely knock out a turret and allow your teammates to kind of maybe push through a lane before the turret comes active again and lights you guys up, that's a good use of an ice wall. Now, I will get more into the strategy and her strengths and how you kind of want to play as MEI. So, just to get down to it, she was absolutely excellent at disrupting an enemy team. She can freeze enemies solid, which makes them easy targets, and she has good survivability and defensive mechanisms. I talked about this before, but you can really get out of a crazy, crazy situation by using that ice wall and that cryo freeze. Now, she also has an easy-to-use ultimate that can have devastating consequences. She throws out a blizzard, which is this orb basically that creates this area that anybody in that area can become frozen. It's incredibly good to use on capture points when the enemy is making this big last-ditch push. But, with that being said, I'm going to get into her weaknesses, and the number one weakness is that the ultimate is often ineffective without help from your own team. So what this means is that while this can freeze possibly even their entire team if you catch them pushing the capture point together, she doesn't have a whole lot of DPS. Like I said, she's got that 75 damage icicle that can be fired off just about twice a second, just under that. But if you've got a bunch of tanks, huge defensive characters frozen on the ground, this thing, it doesn't last forever. And if you're just dumping a few icicles, you might only be able to kill one, maybe two low health players. But if you have a bunch of your teammates around, say you've got a Reinhardt going around with a shield, or say you've got a Reaper who can just light people up, maybe even Reaper with an ultimate, this can be so deadly. But it requires coordination with your teammate, and that's why I think it's not one of the best ultimates in the game, but it's definitely up there. Now, another weakness she has is that she has low damage at medium and long range due to damage drop-off. Her only real ability to damage people at range is with the Icicle, and at range it can only do 22 damage. Now, it's kind of not really a realm that you want to delve in with Mei. If you're playing on a map where the teammates are choosing to play long range, you might want to look into changing up your character, because that Icicle really won't do it. It's also kind of a high skill weapon to shoot. Obviously you can do a little bit of damage to stationary targets. It does have dead on accuracy, but it also has a fairly slow travel time. It's got a fairly low muzzle velocity. So if you're trying to shoot it at range at, say, a Tracer or a Genji, GG bruh, it's not going to happen. I don't care how good you are. You cannot predict the movement of some of those players. Now, and like I said, mobile enemies are also often difficult to freeze. So Genji, Tracer, characters who have the ability to maybe climb a wall away from you or flick ahead with L1, have drastic movement abilities, can be kind of hard to get with Mei. That being said, don't attempt to stop them, because freezing them, who knows, maybe you could catch Tracer on one of her cooldowns while all of her blink ahead abilities are kind of gone, and you can slow her down, even just make them more vulnerable for a teammate to hook them, to shoot them, to do whatever to take them out. Now, getting into the strategy of it all. In this section of the video, I'm going to go briefly over the main strategies you should employ as Mei, and I'm going to start with an overview and then go in depth about each ability that Mei has. So, Mei is a defensive hero that specializes in frost abilities, as I said. Now, at close range, Mei's damage potential is high, but at long range, her damage potential is pretty low. Mei is very useful to her team if she focuses on her strength, which is disruption. So you want to be using that ice wall, you want to be using that cryo freeze. During this video, you'll see lots of times where I'm kind of holding a push, holding off an area, where I'll actually throw up an ice wall, even if it doesn't really look like there's people pushing at that time. Because say we're in the area where they have maybe just 2 lanes to push through, and I throw up an ice wall on one of those lanes, all of a sudden, all 6 players in the enemy team are going to be funneled through the one area. So that makes it, for one, easier for your team to just completely dunk on these people as they walk through that one lane. 2, it also lets you completely close the gap as Mei. Because like I said, she's a close range character. If you know the one corridor that they're going to be walking through, you can just sit on it and just pump that primary fire through and freeze up those enemies and let your teammates do the rest, or just pop them off with an icicle. All in all, Mei works as a utility hero. With the exception of some rare moments, she doesn't really get to shine at the forefront like offense or even some defensive heroes like Widowmaker or Bastion. Instead, she is there to increase the efficiency of her more damaging teammates and really decrease the efficiency of the enemy team. Mei is, in my opinion, stronger when defending than when she's attacking, but she's generally viable on all maps and in pretty much all situations. If you're playing Mei and you notice that your teammates lack the damage to follow up on your disruptions, your freezes, your ice walls, they really can't take them out as you throttle the enemy team, you might want to switch to a more impactful, high DPS hero. Now, last but not least, I wanted to get into the counters and the character counters for Mei, as well who she's incredibly strong against. So, just to get down to it, Mei is a strong counter, and I've talked about this during the video, against Genji. Now, Genji is relatively weak against Mei because she can use a freeze gun on Genji, and it cannot be deflected. Now, one of Genji's primary strengths is his ability to just deflect all the firepower of the enemy player right back at them. Now, he cannot do this to Mei. Although Genji can use a Swift Strike to escape out of the way to prevent getting frozen, Mei can then just use her Ice Wall to avoid Genji's attacks, and Cryo Freeze herself after a Genji Swift Strike breaks her down. Now, even though Genji can jump or climb over her Ice Wall, the Ice Wall still slows Genji down quite a bit, and thus giving Mei enough time to escape. If Genji uses his ultimate Dragon Blade, Mei can simply use Cryo Freeze to protect herself from it. 1 versus 1, Genji is better off staying a distance from Mei and using shurikens to deal damage. Now remember that Genji can use a deflect on Mei's Blizzard drone to send it back towards Mei to act as a Blizzard for Genji's team. That is pretty much the one case where Genji can come out on top, and I have yet to see that happen in about 20 hours of gameplay. I don't think it's going to be something that you see too frequently. Now, Tracer is an easy fight for Mei. Mei's Ice Wall can trap a Tracer close to Mei, making it harder for Tracer to use Blink to escape, and this allows Mei to then freeze Tracer with her freeze gun. Tracer would need to use recall in the situation in order to attempt to escape that, and if Tracer managed to get some damage off on MEI, it's not going to matter a whole lot since MEI can just freeze herself and regain that health back. Now, Tracer's Pulse Bomb / Recall combo is also not effective against MEI because, as I said earlier, she can actually use Cryo Freeze and just save herself and take 0 damage from that Pulse Bomb. Now, moving on to the next hero that MEI is amazing against, D.Va. Now, MEI has some strong counters against her. D.Va's defensive matrix does not work on MEI's short-range Frost Blaster, but it does work on her long-range Icicle shots. From a distance, D.Va does very little damage with the fusion cannons, as they are most effective in close range. However, D.Va will need to keep her distance from MEI, or she will most likely get frozen and ejected from her mech. Up close and personal, D.Va can escape from the freeze effect by boosting away from it. Now, MEI's Ice Wall is a great counter to D.Va's ultimate self-destruct. When you see a self-destruct, simply throw an Ice Wall in front of it between you and the exploding mech. This will not only save you, but it can also save your teammates. This also enables your team to keep fighting and not have to find a wall to hide behind. Now, be very careful throwing your Blizzard Drone out around D.Va, because she can use a defense matrix to absorb the Blizzard Drone, rendering it useless, which will also put your ultimate status back at a 0. If you have successfully employed your Blizzard, D.Va can easily boost out of the area of effect and save herself from the freezing. Now, Winston's Tesla Cannon only does damage in close range, so he would need to get close to MEI to do any damage. But MEI's Freeze Blaster is just straight up stronger. It will always outdamage Winston, and that is why MEI is such a good counter to his character. Even if Winston uses his ultimate Primal Rage on MEI, she can still freeze him, or she can simply use Cryo Freeze to escape it. Now, Ice Walls can further keep Primal Rage under control and not so ragey. This means that Winston should generally stay away from MEI. Winston is better off staying away and focusing on other heroes to kill, and his barrier projectors are still effective at blocking MEI's Endothermic Blast, Frost Stream, and long-range Icicle shots. Now, Winston can also escape from MEI's Freeze Gun simply by just leaping away from it, but overall, he can't really do any damage to MEI, and for that reason, I think that she's an effective counter against Winston. The second character that I think she's another, well, actually no, this is the fourth. What am I talking about? The next character that I think MEI is an amazing counter against is Bastion. And that's due mainly to her Ice Walls. They're very effective on Bastion, and it's the main reason why she counters him. Ice Walls can be put up in front of a Bastion sentry to prevent him from shooting for a while, and this gives your offensive allies the time to make their move to go ambush him. Although MEI's long-range Icicle shots can do relatively decent damage to a Bastion sentry, it's generally not enough to take him out, though. That 22 damage doesn't really do a whole lot to Bastion's overall health pool. MEI herself can also attempt to ambush a Bastion via Ice Walls and Cryo Freezes as she moves closer to the sentry to eventually freeze him with her Frost Gun, opening up him to vulnerability to the enemy team as well as MEI herself. Now, this is pretty rare to actually get close enough to freeze her with the gun, but you're probably going to need backup, I would say. MEI is more of a support for the other offensive heroes to get to Bastion easier. Blizzard is only somewhat effective against Bastion Sentry, since the slowing effect of Blizzard has no use against the stationary Bastion Sentry anyways. Although the Blizzard might be able to freeze the Bastion for a short period of time and open him up to vulnerabilities, he really can go pretty unscathed through this. MEI is a good counter to Bastion's tank ultimate, since you can just throw up an Ice Wall to block Bastion's tank shots. Also, the Blizzard's pretty effective against the tank form as well. Now, the next guy that MEI can completely dunk on is Roadhog. Ice Wall will be MEI's best friend against Roadhog. If you happen to get chained in by Roadhog's chain hook, simply put up an Ice Wall to block his shot so you can escape. Or I like to personally run Cryo Freeze as well. So you get roped in, and then all of a sudden, he can't do any damage to the character that he's just grabbed. Now, Ice Wall is also useful for blocking Roadhog's ultimate Whole Hog, which can protect your entire team from his scrap gun spam. Although Whole Hog will be able to kill the entire wall before the duration is up for it, it should still give your team enough time to take some cover from his ultimate. Now, Roadhog's large hitbox and slow movement makes him a pretty easy target for MEI's long-range Icicle shots, and since Roadhog has really poor mobility, Blizzard happens to work really, really well on him. Blizzard can also freeze Whole Hog, which is another method of disabling Roadhog's ultimate. Now, Roadhog's self-healing ability, which is the take-a-breather ability, can be cancelled by either freezing him or using your Freeze Blaster. So you can either use the Blizzard or the Freeze Blaster. All of a sudden, he can't get his health back, and you can just dunk on that screw-up with some more Icicles. Now, a character that MEI is weak against is Reaper. So although Mei is great at dealing with enemies in short range with her Freeze Blaster, it's simply not enough to deal with Reaper's short range shotgun DPS. Reaper can use Wraith form to prevent himself from getting frozen, but he will most likely kill Mei before that's even necessary. Being flanked from behind by a Reaper is Mei's worst nightmare. As Mei, do your best to keep away from Reaper by using Ice Walls to block his path, and be ready to use Cryo Freeze in time to heal up. Cryo Freeze can save Mei from Reaper's ultimate Death Blossom, but if it's still on a cooldown, you will need to try to quickly throw up an Ice Wall to block it as fast as possible. The next character that's a great counter to Mei is Junkrat. He's got so many ways to counter all of Mei's abilities. Junkrat can easily fire his grenades over at Mei's Ice Wall, dealing lots of damage from safety. He can also use Riptires to climb over the Ice Walls and kill enemies behind it. If Mei uses a Cryo Freeze, Junkrat can then put a steel trap down next to her, and she will be trapped after she unfreezes. Junkrat can also take this a step further by placing a mine under the Cryo Freeze as well, which will deal even more damage with a deadly trap mine combo. This is one of those rare instances where pressing RM while Cryo Freeze is active to cancel it makes sense, since it can prevent Junkrat from putting his trap mine next to you. And I say RM, but you can also use R2 or L2 if you're playing from the console. If Mei gets too close to Junkrat and tries to freeze him, Junkrat can use a concussion mine jump just to escape it and deal a bit of damage to Mei as a bonus. Same thing with Mei's ultimate Blizzard. Junkrat can simply do a concussion mine jump to get out of it. Now, Pharah is another character that Mei has a lot of trouble with. Mei's deadly close up with her freeze gun, but since Pharah can just fly away from her, Mei's really not that much of a threat. If Mei uses her Ice Wall, Pharah can just boost up in the air and shoot over the Ice Wall, thus making Mei's ability way less useful against a Pharah. Mei's ultimate Blizzard tends to also be less useful because Pharah can always be high up in the air to avoid it. Mei's icicle shots may be able to penetrate a Pharah from long range, but the damage is going to be pretty minimal, and the skill required to hit those shots is incredible. I certainly can't do it. Ice Walls can be used to block Pharah's ultimate barrage though. Now, when dealing with Mei close up, Zarya can use her particle barrier to prevent getting frozen by Mei's freeze gun. Zarya can also throw a projected barrier on one of her allies to prevent them from getting frozen too. So Zarya is an incredible counter to Mei because she can just eat the damage from the freeze gun and make herself all that more powerful. When Zarya's particle gun is nearly fully charged, it can be a close tie between Zarya killing Mei from full health and Mei freezing her. If Mei uses a Cryo Freeze during a fight with Zarya, it won't matter a whole lot since Zarya has 200 seals, which will also regenerate fast and will keep Zarya in the fight. Although it can be effective to position a Cryo Freeze so it will block Zarya's explosives from hitting your allies. Now, since Mei is usually right in the back with her teammates, she's usually in a targetable spot for Zarya's ultimate Gravitron Surge. When Surge, you can put up an Ice Wall to block incoming shots and projectiles from getting your trapped allies in the Surge. You can also use a Cryo Freeze to avoid any area of impact damage thrown your way, which also potentially shielding any allies behind the Cryo Freeze. Now do note that using the Ice Wall to propel you upwards while stuck in a surge will not get you out of it. Zarya can counter Mei's Blizzard by using a particle barrier and a projected barrier on one of her allies in the Blizzard as well. Now this particle barrier will stop the freeze effect and let her walk out, right out of the Blizzard to safety. If a particle barrier is not available to her, then Zarya is out of luck, she's in the shitter due to her low mobility. Now another great counter to Mei is Widowmaker. So Widowmaker rarely makes close contact with her enemies since she's normally in the back sniping. If you're a Widowmaker and you're on the front line, you're doing it wrong, sister. I'm sorry. Because of this, she'll never need to worry about getting frozen by Mei's freeze gun unless Mei is doing some really funky flanking maneuvers, which isn't really playing Mei to her strengths. If Widowmaker does happen to get close to Mei, she can easily use her grappling hook to escape to a safer spot. If you see a Widowmaker way in the back, simply throw up an ice wall right in front of her to block her shots temporarily. This could force her to relocate temporarily, disabling her from combat, and maybe getting her a little bit closer and a little bit more vulnerable. Widowmaker is less affected by Blizzard, since she is usually just by herself sniping away from the heart of the battle. Now, another counter to Mei is Mercy. Mercy, mercy me. So, since Mercy rarely ever comes into close range with her enemies, she tends to give Mei a harder time since Mercy will rarely come into contact with Mei's freeze gun. If you do manage to get close to Mercy and start freezing her, Mercy can use her Guardian Angel ability to fly to another ally to escape out of it. Icicle shots can be effective but it's generally hard to aim at her since she is constantly flying around to support her allies while taking cover behind walls or objects. If Mercy pops out in the open, ice walls can be used to try and isolate Mercy from her team to let your allies have an easier time taking her down. Blizzard might be effective against MEI, but again, she has that Guardian Angel ability to escape out of it. Now, Lucio is another ability and the last hero that MEI will rarely ever freeze up close, and that is thanks to Lucio's alternate fire, which is the sound wave. This will knock enemies back away from him. If MEI gets too close, all Lucio's got to do is pop that sound barrier and save his teammates from him, or save himself and his teammates from MEI's freeze gun. Lucio's overall fast movement makes him a hard target to hit for icicle shots at long range, and MEI's ice wall doesn't affect Lucio too much, so he can use his speed aura with Amp It Up to quickly navigate around it. Lucio can save his team from MEI's Blizzard with his speed aura combined with his Amp It Up ability, and he can further protect his team from Blizzard with the sound barrier as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the line breakdown of MEI's abilities, a general overview of how to play her, and who she can counter, and who you should watch out for while you're overwatching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, you can leave a like down below. Leave a comment letting me know whether you or not you want to see more of these hero breakdowns, strategy guides, and I will happily provide them. I will catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.
I'm taking the objective. Hey!
Experience tranquility.
Teleporter online. Hey! We have a teleporter. Help me find it.
Everyone heal up. Objective A captured. Commence attack on objective B.
Watch this.
Enemy turret ahead.
站住！不许走！
Teleporter online. I have opened the bar.
冰墙升起来吧！
Tactical visor activated.